Do you consider yourself to have a mandate?
Yes, I do. A very big one.
At issue this Sunday morning, what's next for New Jersey Governor-elect Mikie Scherrill? And what will she tackle first? And what does her victory mean for Democrats, Republicans, and the 2026 midterms? I'm talking to another woman who's had that New Jersey job, former Governor Todd Whitman. And urgent inspections of SEPTA's older regional rail cars have led to delays, cancellations, and crowded trains. When will things improve? I'll ask the man in charge of the transit agency.
NBC10 at Issue starts now.
I'm Lauren Mayk. Welcome to NBC10 at Issue. New Jersey has chosen its next governor. Democratic Congresswoman Mikie Scherrill will take over for fellow Democrat Phil Murphy, and she's now taking steps to plan her new administration. Scherrill took 56% of the vote compared to 43% for Republican Jack Ciattarelli. That's a much, much bigger margin than 4 years ago when Ciattarelli narrowly lost to Governor Murphy. Joining us now is someone who knows all about the job Mikie Scherrill is stepping into. Todd Whitman served as governor of New Jersey from 1994 to 2001. She was the first woman elected as New Jersey governor. She was elected and served as a Republican. These days, she is the founding co-chair, one of the founding co-chairs of the Forward Party, and she endorsed Mikie Scherrill this time around. Welcome back to NBC10 at Issue. Great to see you, Governor.
Always good to be with you.
So have you gotten a chance to talk to the governor-elect since her win?
I haven't yet. I've texted her. We've texted, but I haven't spoken to her.
Well, I was at her first press conference as governor-elect, and I asked her about having a mandate after this election. She said yes, that she has one and that it is a very big one. What is your advice for her on using that mandate?
Use it carefully and use it strategically to get the things that are the most important and the biggest hurdles that you think you're going to face, to use it and then be able to use it, as I say, strategically. That's what's going to make the most sense. And she, she focuses on energy. She was focusing on the energy costs. So that's a place to go and use that, but it doesn't last forever. So you want to make sure you are careful about how you use the mandate. But it is real. I mean, she was elected handily. I wish I had half of that kind of a plurality when I was elected. So she has the ability, she has running room, and she should start to get right after the big issues that she wants to tackle and do it early on in this administration.
Were you surprised at the margin and just how big of a win this was?
Yes, I was. I did not expect it to be this big, but I'm delighted. I mean, it's one of those things where every election is local. It's about what are you going to do for me? But you can't ignore Washington these days because it's in everybody's life and at the forefront of all reporting and thinking. So the fact that Jack said that he could think of nothing that Donald Trump had done wrong, with all the mess that's going on in Washington, with all the things that the president is doing and has done to New Jersey, canceling the tunnel, for instance, which is a huge issue here, not solving problems like energy and not spending any time on energy. I mean, during this shutdown, being out of the country for such a large portion of time also helped Mikie.
And, you mentioned President Trump. I actually looked back at something that you said during a State of the Union response back in 1995, talking about the previous year's election. You said, quote, "It's clear that your votes in November sounded a warning to the president." Now, at the time, that president was President Bill Clinton. But is that how you view what happened this time regarding President Trump?
Absolutely. And because it's not just New Jersey, it was across the country. We at the Forward Party had a number of really good wins in state and local office. So a lot of it had to do, well, it is local. I know that, and I know, that old saying, all politics is local, is true. It's still, you cannot ignore the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's more than an elephant because he does more. It's one of those things where he was part of all of this, and I think it drove a lot of people to the polls. The choices they made were based on who they thought would do the best in the office, but they were driven to the polls by their frustration of what's happening in Washington and their dissatisfaction with the president's record.
Jack Ciattarelli made the argument during this campaign that having a relationship with the President of the United States was a good thing and could help New Jersey if he won. Mikie Scherrill said this week that she hadn't talked to the president yet, but what kind of relationship does she need to have with the White House to get everything she can for New Jersey?
Well, she needs to do what she's been doing, which is be open to talk to anyone, be willing to talk to them. But she's got to stand up for New Jersey, and that's what she's going to do. I mean, this president is so mercurial. You can do exactly what he wants 1 second, and then if you say the slightest thing that he doesn't like, bang, you're off the charts, and you won't get anything. And I believe you're going to see more pushback on this idea of I'm only going to allow public funds to go to states I like and people I like rather than all the people. I mean, he is president of everybody, the people who didn't vote for him as well as the people who did vote for him. And also, by the way, when you take it out on a state like New Jersey, you're taking it out on a whole lot of Republicans. It's not just Democrats who are hurt, it's Republicans as well. So it makes no sense. And what the governor here needs to do is do what's right for New Jersey and stand up and be strong. And in many cases, like most bullies, you can get them to back down.
When we look at the results of this election, you obviously have run statewide in New Jersey. What do you make of some of the swings that we saw in places like Gloucester County, Passaic County, places where Republicans and President Trump have had success recently, but Mikie Scherrill was able to turn things around the other way?
Well, it's a real wake-up call for the Republican Party here. I mean, as you say, some of these counties like Gloucester, I mean, they've been solid Republicans forever. And all of a sudden now, to switch this way, she outperformed all past elections. I mean, it really was an amazing sea change. And it is a message to Republicans that people are not happy with the way things are going at the moment, and who can blame them? I mean, the president could say all he wants that prices are going down. They're not. They're going up. And when you buy your groceries, you know it. You see it. There's no amount of saying, no, don't believe that. Believe what I tell you when it's coming out of your pocketbook. So I think it is something that tells people, particularly within the Republican Party and particularly in this state and where most states are, where most people are, they're in the middle. They're not they don't like to be adhered to any party particularly. They want things solved and issues approached. And that's what the Forward Party is providing. We're providing those candidates who are willing to work with anyone. They sign a pledge to that effect, that they'll work with anyone to solve problems, that they'll create a safe place to discuss those problems, that they'll work to make sure that anyone who has the legal right to vote gets to vote, and that they will uphold the rule of law and respect the Constitution and base those on the principles of decency, diversity, and democracy. That's what people want. That's what people are looking for. And I think that's what they said in this election by this switch in so many of the counties that have been heavily Republican and all of a sudden going Democratic, because one of the things that Mikie Scherrill has shown is that she's down the middle. She doesn't care about getting credit so much as she cares about getting things done.
Do you think the lessons from this election hold for the midterms? That's a year away. A lot of things can happen in a year.
A lot of things can happen in a year, absolutely. I don't think you should take anything for granted. I think you have to keep working at it. We will at Forward. We're going to have a lot more candidates in the next cycle to create that fulcrum. The beauty of it is you don't have to have everybody in a state legislature. Well, just look at the U.S. Congress. If you had 4 senators who were forwardists, you wouldn't have a shutdown. And there's 10 on the House side. You don't have to have everybody. And of course, the same thing is true for state legislatures. If we can elect that nucleus of candidates in any one of these bodies who are ones who really want to solve problems, who really want to make the system work, you'll get it working.
You know, I did a tour around New Jersey to talk to people in different communities a couple weeks before the election. And some of the voters I talked to, a few of them weren't particularly enthused by Mikie Scherrill. They really weren't enthusiastic about her, but they told me they were voting for her. What does that tell you about this election and how her campaign succeeded?
Well, I think that's the Trump factor. That's what I said before, getting people out to the polls because they're so upset at how dysfunctional the two parties are at the moment. It was one of those things where they just, you throw your hands up and you say, come on. I mean, we are paying our congressional representatives not to work. They haven't been in Washington for 5-6 weeks now. And yet we're paying them. At the same time, we're cutting benefits to people who need them in order to feed their families. We're furloughing federal workers and not even saying we might pay them in the future when they come back to work. I mean, no wonder people are saying this is crazy. We have got to see a change. And whether they were enthusiastic for Mikie or not in that vote, I think that's what that vote for those people was about. I suspect that they're going to be much happier once they see her in office, but that's where she has to be. She has to win those people over, and she knows that. She knows, and she said very clearly on election night, I know a lot of you didn't vote for me, but I'm representing all of you, and I'm going to work for all of you, not just Democrats.
Path to victory. Which voters and which parts of New Jersey were key to Mikie Scherrill's victory? I'm breaking down the results. Then later, deadlines and disruptions. Federally mandated inspections are forcing SEPTA to operate with fewer cars. I'll talk to SEPTA's general manager about when things will get back on track.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
Welcome back to NBC10 at Issue. We are going to take a deeper dive into that New Jersey governor's race and take a look at some of the key factors to Mikie Scherrill's win here. Let's take a look at some of the counties that made a difference for her. Let's start up here in North Jersey in Bergen County. This is a county where Democrats know they've got to get a lot of votes out of here. We'll take a look at this. The difference between Mikie Scherrill and Jack Ciattarelli, 35,000. Let me take you back to 2021, 4 years ago. The difference back then, only 15,000. So Mikie Scherrill got more votes out of here in Bergen County. Let's take a look at a county in our area. Go down to Gloucester County. You see it's blue. That is significant. Republicans have been strong in Gloucester County recently, but Mikie Scherrill was able to flip this county and turn it blue. And let's take a look up here in Passaic County. This is a county that has a large Latino population, and last year, President Trump flipped this county. That was significant. It's been watched very closely. But take a look here. It is now blue. Mikie Scherrill was able to win Passaic County. These are some of the places that contributed to her win, and she is now New Jersey's next governor. Inspections deadline. SEPTA is working around the clock to get its aging regional rail car fleet back on track. When can commuters expect fewer service disruptions? Up next, I'm getting answers from the man in charge of the transit agency.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
We're back now on NBC10 at Issue with the latest problems facing SEPTA. Federal inspectors are helping the transit agency complete the train car inspections of its decades-old Silverliner 4 regional rail cars. Those inspections have led to service disruptions, delays, and crowded commutes. SEPTA had been facing a deadline of October 31st to complete those inspections, but federal officials gave SEPTA a 2-week extension. Joining me now is SEPTA's general manager, Scott Sauer. Scott, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about where things stand right now with a number of issues facing SEPTA. Let's start with these regional rail cars and a November 14th deadline to get these inspections done. Is SEPTA going to meet that deadline?
Yes, we are. We are fully committed to meeting that deadline. We are about 75% of the way through the fleet now with inspections. So we are making really good progress. We really got some momentum on the inspections about midway through October. So we are really pushing along, and we fully expect to meet that November 14th deadline.
Okay, and also you have to install some heat sensors essentially, and you've got a little more time for that. Do you expect to meet that deadline as well?
Yes, we are about a third of the way through the fleet on the heat detection circuitry, and we expect that number to climb dramatically once we finish the inspections. So between November 14th and December 5th, we can dedicate our force fully to doing the installation of the circuitry.
Okay. What is SEPTA's service, regional rail service, going to look like? What is the system going to look like once you have made it through this process?
So as I've been saying, like when November 14th comes, we get through the entire inspection cycle, we're still going to have the circuitry to install. So we are still going to have cars out that we are working on to get through this. So I would advise customers to understand that while the deadline will have passed, service will not instantaneously be restored back to what it was, say, back in September. However, we are making improvements as we go. So of the 30 of the third of the cars that have the heat sensors installed, those cars, once they're inspected, are back. Inspection plus circuitry, they're fully back. So that number is going to improve over time. So what I would advise customers is you'll see improvements day by day, but to be normal, back to what the customer expects to be normal, I have told and been advising customers that you have to give us till the end of the year, at least, before we can say what service will look like as a normal service that you used to have.
You don't know exactly what it's going to look
like? Well, I don't want to overcommit. So we want to get this done right. That's our number one issue here is not speed. It's accuracy. It's getting it done right, making sure that every car is safe to run. So we'll meet all our deadlines, and then by the end of the year, customers should see a difference, an improvement over what they're seeing today. But to be normal, where every train's carrying 5 or 6 cars, I'll say at the end of the year, we'll have a better idea on where that is.
Okay. This has been a tough process for riders. There's been delays, it's been crowded, they've seen trains pass them by. It hasn't been easy. And it comes on the heels of some frustrations that, quite frankly, were already there. What do you say to riders, to your customers who say, I can't count on SEPTA? Yeah,
I can see where they feel that way. It's been hard for me to count on SEPTA sometimes in my commute. But what I can say to customers is, number one, I appreciate that and I empathize completely with what they're going through. But understand that our staff is fully committed to delivering the best service that we can, given the conditions that we have. So we've made a number of changes to service to try to alleviate most of what customers saw in the first few days: pass-ups, overcrowding, the delays and the dramatic, the cancellations that occurred right before pickup. We've done a lot to improve notifications and communications. We've even preemptively canceled trains the day before, so as not to give the customer the false hope that that train might arrive. I think we're getting past that. Trains are still crowded. People might still experience a pass-up, but things are certainly better today than they were in those first few days. And if customers can kind of hang with us, give us a little bit of time to get through this, things are going to improve every day for our customers.
This summer, there was a lot of discussions about funding, and we'll get into that a little bit. But you were talking about the possibility of SEPTA entering a death spiral, with fare increases, with service cuts. And some of the circumstances have changed, but you still have riders dealing with this situation. You still have some funding uncertainty. Do you still feel like you are on the edge of maybe a smaller version of that spiral you were concerned about?
Well, I'm certainly concerned about the future of the organization and of transit in this part of the Commonwealth, but certainly Commonwealth-wide. But because the resolution that we arrived at is not the resolution, right? There needs to be a long-term funding improvement for transit in Pennsylvania. So while we're holding on, we've got a 2-year reprieve in some respects due to the way we move funding around. We're not fixed. The situation is not resolved. And then the car issues are an indicator of where we are headed without a long-term funding source. We should not be running 50-some-odd-year-old cars in a major metropolitan city like Philadelphia.
But you are.
We are, and that was a result of lots of decisions that have been made over the last 20 years to fix this or defer that. And we've done a lot with capital funding from Act 89 12 years ago. We replaced bridges, and we replaced track, and we replaced signal systems. And we instituted a positive train control system on our regional rail network to make that system safe, an unfunded federal mandate that we had to dedicate hundreds of millions of dollars to. We had to make choices over the years, and we're still making choices. And the fact that we have these older rail cars is an indicator of the choices, the difficult choices that we've had to make over the years.
How much longer can you continue to run those older cars?
When we get through the the inspections and the installation of the wire and all the requirements of this order, we intend to then put these cars through a very rigorous overhaul to extend their life. We have to extend their life until new cars arrive. We are right at the edge now of issuing a request for proposals to start the process to replace these cars. It is a 6 to 10 year process before we start to see some cars in year 6 and the full fleet in year 9 or 10. So we got to make them last long enough to get those new cars in. And that's what that overhaul process will hopefully bring us.
Why did the federal government have to be the one to come in and say, hey, you've got to do this, you've got to do these inspections?
You know, they shouldn't have. This is something that we should have devised on our own, and in some cases we did. We worked hand in hand with the federal government to create the inspection plan. We had to submit the inspection plan to the federal government for their approval. So, yes, we should have done more prior to now that would have avoided this situation. But we're here now. We're singularly focused on this as a goal for the organization. We want to get service back. We want to make it safe. And working with the federal government, with PennDOT, with our state regulators is very important to us to maintain that relationship and get the job done.
Count on NBC10 to bring you updates on the SEPTA budget crisis on air and online. If you go to NBC10.com, you'll find a special section devoted to our coverage. We'll be right back.
This is NBC10 at Issue.
Before we wrap up this edition of NBC10 at Issue, a reminder, you can see more of my interviews with public officials, candidates, political insiders, and voters by subscribing to my Battleground Politics podcast. Episodes are streaming now on NBC10.com, the NBC10 app, and our NBC Philadelphia YouTube page. Or you can listen while on the go, wherever you get your podcasts. That does it for this edition of NBC10 at Issue. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.